Hello, this is the Watchdog, and welcome back to Fun with Watches. If watches weren't fun, you'd only need one. Today we're going to review the Pagani Design PD1762 homage to a Rolex Explorer 2. Let's start out with the wrist check. I'm wearing a Still Dive SD 1970 Captain Willard, and Grogu is wearing my Podagar 629. Grogu tried Brussels sprouts for the first time. I asked him what he thought. He said they tasted like a Wookiee took a dump in a Sarlacc pit, and the Sarlacc spit it out because it tasted so bad, and the vultures wouldn't touch it because they had standards. I asked him why he had seconds. He said no pain, no gain. Alright, let's take a look at the watch. It comes in your typical Pagani Design box with the world's greatest cleaning cloth. And here it is. Isn't that a nice looking watch? I really like it. I think they did a good job with this one. So if you just like the looks of it and think, hey, that looks really great and has an NH34, you probably don't need to see the rest of the review. Just go buy it. It's great. This is an homage to a Rolex Explorer 2, and even though I have reviewed more Pagani Design watches than any other brand by far, I have always avoided this one for some reason. And personally, I'm glad because Pagani Design has updated this model with the new NH34 movement. The original Explorer 2 was not designed to be a GMT watch. The 24-hour hand was not adjustable, and it was meant to be able to tell night or day when exploring a cave or any other place where you can't see the sun. When Pagani Design started using the NH34, they jacked up the price to about $150, which seemed kind of high for Pagani Design. Well, that didn't last very long. This one is going for a good $100, which seems a bit more price appropriate, but it's still about $20 more than the older Pearl DG5833 version. They did more than just slap a new movement into the old model. They also shrunk the case from 42mm to 40mm, despite the fact the genuine article is a 42. This one only comes in white. If you want a black one, you'll have to settle for the older movement. I personally prefer the white anyway. Maybe they'll eventually make the black with the NH34. The watch is 40mm at the bezel. And of course, like I said, it used to be a 42 and the original Rolex is a 42. It's 47.8mm lug to lug with inverted end links. Is 12mm thick if you don't count the Cyclops, and I never do. Has a 20mm lug width and weighs 141 grams on the supply bracelet with 4 links removed. Yes, you heard that, 4 links. So you'll be able to wear this if you have a huge wrist. The bezel is steel with 24-hour markers, and it does not turn. Once again, the Explorer 2 was never designed to track more than one time zone, so that's why the bezel's always been fixed. And then we have a white dial with no sunburst effect. It's a very nice white. It's very, very white. Then we have the Pagani Design name and logo up top, and then on the bottom it says GMT. Once again, the Rolex Explorer 2 was never intended to be a GMT. Then it says automatic, water resistant, 10 bars, 100 meters. Yes, there's the arrow in the way, but I'm not going to move it. You can kind of fill it in with your mind. Then we have the typical Rolex style indices with the upside down triangle at top and batons at the 6 and the 9 and dots everywhere else. And then the hands are typical Rolex style. We got the minute fence post hand, the Mercedes hour hand, and this being a 4-hander, we have the 24-hour hand. That's orange, and that's the same color as on the real Rolex. And then we have a lollipop second hand, and all the hands are fully loomed, even the 4th hand. And then we have a date at the 3 with a Cyclops, and as you can see, the Cyclops does a serious good job of magnifying. I always say if you're going to have a Cyclops, have a Cyclops. So, and this one is definitely a Cyclops that does the job. We have a signed screw-down crown. The thread action is really good. You can hardly feel the threads when you unscrew it, and it pops nice when you unscrew it. And when you go to screw it back in, it catches nice, and and it screws back in really good. You can't feel the threads at all, so that's good. They must have did some really good machining on the threads there. Then the crystal is sapphire, and I don't know if it has AR coating or not, but you can see through it just fine. I like it. And then we have a solid steel case, and of course this is oyster style, and it's polished on the sides, brushed on the tops, and brushed on the bottoms. And it's a nice design. It's a nice case. It has a good feel to it, and it's got crown guards that go about halfway up the crown, so they actually protect the crown. Some crown guards are just for show, but not this one. This actually protects the crown. Then we have a display screw down case back. This is not sapphire. This is glass. I tested it. They make no claim that it's sapphire. And in all honesty, do you really need a sapphire display case back? Because the whole point of sapphire is it doesn't scratch easy, and when a watch is on your wrist, the display case back is probably the least thing that ever gets scratched. So why raise the cost for no real gain other than bragging rights? Then it says stainless steel, Pagani Design, water resist. You get 100 meters here. This is not a dive style watch, although a lot of the Pagani Design dive style watches are only 100 meters. But it's nice that they did a pretty good job keeping the case back thin. So there's been a lot of cases where you get a display case back and it's kind of thick. Well, that's not the case here, so good job, Pagani Design. Underneath the case back is the NH34 movement. This is a fairly new movement that Seiko just came out with last year. And everybody was kind of shocked that they sold it to all the other watchmakers too, because it was kind of a big deal. So this is basically an NH35 with the GMT movement. And the nice thing about this compared to most more affordable GMT movements is the GMT hand jumps every hour. So most GMT watches movements in this price range don't jump. They actually smoothly move. So it's a lot easier to set, because the annoying thing about one that moves smoothly is if you ever go too far, you have to go all the way around again. Where this one, you're never going to go too far, or if you do go too far, it's no big deal to go all the way around again. So that's the nice thing about that. And of course, being a Seiko movement, it's going to be a little bit more reliable than the old DG5833 that they used to use, which was a Chinese brand. And the trouble is, I never keep my watches long enough to ever really test their reliability over time. But I've heard bad things about the DJ5833 from other reviewers. So it's good that they have this new Seiko movement. The NH34 movement is a 24 joule 3 hertz movement that hand winds hacks and has a bidirectional rotor. And they're usually fairly accurate right off the shelf. So let's go ahead and look at it on the Timegrapher. Here it is on the Timegrapher, and as you can see, it's running pretty slow, but it is still within specs. Just barely though, because I think the specs are plus 40, minus 25. So yeah, it's always a kind of a pain if a hacking movement runs slow, because when you need to adjust it, you actually have to move the hands, where a fast movement, you can just hack it and wait for time to catch up. But the thing with these NH movements is you're never going to know what you're going to get. They're usually fairly accurate off the shelf. And if the company that makes the watches doesn't regulate them, it's just going to be a crapshoot if you get a fast one or a slow one. The bracelet is a solid steel oyster style with brushed center links. solid steel end links and inverted end links. And it does have screw pin adjusters and not push pins. One thing about Pagani Design screw pins though is there's no hole on the other end. So you can't, if they ever get stuck, you can't push them out. So hopefully you don't ever strip one. But I always recommend buying an extra Pagani Design bracelet, and that way you have extra screw pins and links if anything ever goes wrong. Then the clasp is different. This is kind of unusual. This is not your typical Pagani Design clasp that they use with a Rolex style watch. The one big thing is it has a scissor clasp instead of the inlay clasp of the usual Rolex style. And it doesn't have the easy link. So, but it does have side holes, which is unusual too. So if you ever need to use the micro adjust, you can actually take a paper clip and just push it in, or any other tool. You don't have to use the easy link like you do in a typical Pagani Design clasp. So that's nice. Now, one thing that isn't nice though is this end here does not articulate at all. So when you press it in, the snap's not very satisfying, because if it was, it would be really hard to get out. So it's a good thing it has this fold over, because if you didn't have this fold over, I have a feeling this would come loose quite a bit, because it just doesn't give you that satisfying click like you would typically get. But it is nice that you don't have to fumble with that easy link if you ever need to use the micro adjust, because that easy link on these Pagani Designs, it's not easy at all. Here's the watch on my 7.5-inch wrist. That's a really nice looking watch. I think they did a really good job with this one. And it wears just about perfect. Yeah, I kind of complain that's 40 and not a 42. But really, that's not really something to complain about unless you have a huge wrist. Because as you can see, this looks just fine on me. Really nice looking watch. Here we are in the Lume room. Just wearing the watch, I knew it had good lume, which was quite surprising for a Pagani Design. Usually their lume is pretty poor. So let's see how it does with a proper test. As we speed up the time, all I can say is wow, this is really good lume, and the best part is that the hand lume is actually stronger than the index lume, where with Pagani Design it is usually the opposite. Everything is still going really strong. It may not compare to my Seiko Safari, but well done Pagani Design. I hope they keep this up. What do I like about this watch? Well, I like it has the new NH34 movement. I like the fact that it has great lume. I really like this white dial. I think they did a good job with that. And I like the fact that it has a proper cyclops that really magnifies the date. What are my gripes and groans? Well, there really isn't anything to complain about. I guess my biggest complaint would be the clasp. The fact that this end doesn't articulate and it doesn't click well. But other than that, I really like this watch. And I guess I'm kind of just curious why they shrunk it from 42 to 40. That's not really a complaint because it wears just fine as a 40. But since the original is a 42, I just wonder why they didn't keep it at a 42. Do I recommend this watch? Yes, of course. I think this watch is great. It looks and wears nice, has a great movement, and darn good lume. You'll feel like you are wearing the genuine article with this thing. Well, thank you for watching my review of the Pagani Design PD1762, and I will be back with another review or unboxing. Be sure and like and subscribe to my channel. Bye.